is Heidi Show, and we're here today to explore holistic and metaphysical concepts. And we have a wonderful panel with us today, and I wanted to expand a little bit on the meaning of holism. We do some alternative lifestyle shows here, talking about different ways of treating the earth, but holism means how we treat each other, the whole of existence, the whole of creation, and balancing out the forces of nature and the forces of nature within us. And just this past weekend, we had quite a conflict here in Missoula that I don't know if anybody is unaware of it, between citizens and the police force here in Missoula. So we have a panel today, and I'll introduce one at a time. First, I'll introduce the names of everybody and then talk to everybody individually for about 5 minutes. So starting on my right, we have Rich Walks, a local citizen who was arrested, and also, I believe, a movie maker. Is that correct?
Want to be in the future.
Okay.
I'm actually a wilderness guide. I've worked in the area for quite some time, leading wilderness trips on the rivers and in the backcountry. And presently I'm doing some political organizing here in Missoula as well.
Okay, great. And Barry Adams, a wonderful human being and a longtime Montanan. Were you born here?
Born and raised here.
Born and raised here. And do you want to expand on that?
Well, let's see. I was born in Montana, raised in Montana, and I go to gatherings, and I'm here to kind of talk about the police involvement in the rainbow gatherings.
Okay, great. And Brielle Johnson, a local citizen gardener who was also arrested in this last weekend's events. And you live in Missoula?
Missoula, yes. I'm actually from North Idaho.
North Idaho?
I was born and raised.
Okay, thanks. And Chad Harder, a photojournalist with the Missoula Independent. And you were also at this last weekend's events. And were you arrested?
I was not arrested. I was pepper sprayed, but I was not arrested.
Okay, two of the lucky ones here. Oh, no, you weren't arrested either. Okay. And I wanted to start with Barry. Just chronologically, the Rainbow Gathering happened a few weeks before, and we have some footage that I'm not sure if they're quite ready to show in the back, but we could start talking about, first of all, what is the Rainbow Gathering?
The Rainbow Gathering, well, actually, it's a peaceable assembly for purposes of expression on National Forest System lands or on public lands. It's basically a peaceable assembly for... Oh, right here you see the land where the gathering took place, and this was supposed to be an environmentally sensitive habitat and all of that, but you see the clear cuts, you'll see that's a GPS sign, and behind you you'll see that the land there, that's all wormwood, sagebrush. It's been overgrazed, this land has been logged, there's a mine on this land, so the government decided that because we were having so many thousands of people on such a large piece of land, it would cause such a tremendous impact, and that tremendous impact would then destroy this piece of land. Well, this is after the gathering. You can see that the land is not destroyed, but the police presence on the land is basically for behind the gatherings has been for a lot of years to try and either stop the gatherings or to try and do what they now call management of the gathering. And what they do is they set up an incident command structure, very similar to the Hells Angel thing that they had here, that finally wound up in Missoula as in an incident. They have the same kind of incident command structure at the gathering, and only it's much more involved. It's been going now for 15, 20 years, as far as having many federal police. And they take over all the highway patrol, they take over all the county sheriffs, they take over 5 states. They had cops stopping cars and people into Utah, Idaho, Washington, North South Dakota, Wyoming, as much as a month and a half before the gathering. And they're pulling over people, what I call were wearing the rainbow star, kind of like the Jewish star that they had during the Nazi days. Mm-hmm. Well, if you look kind of strange, then they pull you over, and they would then search you, and then there was hundreds of police. And so they kind of have been, over the years, they've been practicing what I would call domestic warfare tactics, using the gathering as a way of staging. And they've actually brought in training crews from various federal law enforcement training center. And this is kind of very relevant to Missoula in particular, because the same kind of tactics and the domestic strife tactics that they used here in Missoula and were trying to use for the Hells Angels, which they finally used such an amateur way on the demonstrators, on the people that are right here in Missoula. Because, for example, 1996, which is real relevant to this, in 1996, the Missouri gathering, they had the Washington police, park police who ride horses and all that, they brought them down, trained them to go to the Olympics in Atlanta. And let me see, they did the same thing with the Utah police here in Missoula. Now let's see, how do you get training? If you don't get training, you got to have something happen. And that's what, as far as I'm concerned, you got to have something happen here in Missoula. And in effect, they sort of aided it happening and helped stage it. And it was done pretty amateur, and it was against people who were not really what I would call any more than amateur agitators, amateur demonstrators, people who didn't go through civil obedience training, didn't go through what to do when you get arrested, what to do, how to get arrested. Because if you're contrary with Pete Lawrenson and some other statements I read in the press and heard to the effect that there was some kind of enemy within and professional agitators, and no. If you really look at the tapes that have gone on here in Missoula, it's people who have largely came together in a very spontaneous way. They obviously, when they're getting arrested, they don't know how to just sit down and fold their arms and sit down and be arrested, as people like, say, in Philadelphia are being arrested right now. Those people are being arrested, and when they don't, like, push the police and go, hey, don't do this, and people are expecting to get pepper sprayed in Philadelphia. People are expecting to get maybe beat on by the cops, so they know what to do. They know to duck their heads. They know to tuck their heads. They know to do all these kinds of things that if you go to many demonstrations, and if you've ever been through civil obedience training, which I call civil obedience training, you need to learn all these kinds of things before you go out and really get it on with in the streets nowadays, because protesting is a dangerous game, as people in Missoula, I think, found out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's at the gathering. There's been an incident command structure now since 1987, pretty continuously. They declared a federal emergency in January, a state emergency in May, and a county emergency in June. And now, let's see, Max Baucus, Senator Mike Dombeck, the Forest Service chief, were down in the Bitterroot where there's hundreds of fires burning, a real emergency's going on, and they're having trouble getting it declared. Well, I think they ought to just send 75 rainbows down there to the Bitterroot Valley and get an emergency declared.
That's an excellent idea.
Okay.
I have to ask you one question, because it's pertinent to your situation. Do you represent the Rainbow family?
No, I'm an individual, and I'm a Montanan. Even though I did get a ticket at the gathering this year.
Are you responsible for the gathering happening?
Myself and two other people apparently are responsible for everything that happened with the gathering, and actually by sort of federal court law, if any rainbow anywhere in the world does anything, then I'm responsible, because I've been to a gathering.
Oh, almighty one.
So that means anybody who's been to a gathering, you're responsible for whatever happens. Right now there's a gathering starting up in Colorado, a regional gathering starting up in Colorado. There'll be over 1,000 people.
And you did that too.
And I don't even know where it is or anything about it, but I know that I could get a ticket for that one down there. So there's a kind of an absurd relationship between us and the Federal Forest Service. The basic problem is the Forest Service doesn't read its own regulations. In their regulations, it says that there is that the Forest Service shall offer an alternative. The gatherings, as the rainbow-style gatherings, are non-hierarchical. They're done by individual volunteers. Everyone is personally responsible for whatever you do. So the federales, the Forest Service in particular, they want us to form into some sort of hierarchical form, choose out certain paper chiefs, certain leaders, And it's an impossible relationship. The gatherings itself, the people who come to the gatherings, they barely tolerate each other in peace during the gathering, let alone having any other kind of affiliation. They damn sure will never let anybody speak for each other. So it's very complicated. There is a way to do it. The option is notification and an operating plan, guidelines, which is something that the Forest Service should use, and this is the battle that I'm in right now, the legal process, and I've been in it since 1972. And this will be my 6th trip to federal court. And I got to go to court in October over it. And but it's kind of like now, see, it's like the government has gone through a lot of arrests, and they arrested people at the gathering. But when they issued the ticket, they came to me in the kind of way I'm talking about professionals do it, like professional police officers and demonstrators. Okay, like happened in Washington, D.C. Here's the professional police chief of Washington, D.C. during the what was the one meeting, not like the WTO, but the other one, and the IMF meeting, and the International Monetary Fund. And here's the police chief, and he's out there walking up and down the line, and the only demonstrators they really got it on with were the ones who were like destroying things. Right? And even the people who were like there had no permit, the police chief was being cool. Now that's a professional. At the gathering, I got a ticket the same kind of way. The guy gave me a ticket, Robin Pogue and Dwayne Moe, federal special agent, law enforcement, came in very respectful fashion, gave me a ticket. You see, they didn't come in, beat on me, they didn't pepper spray me, they didn't throw me to the ground, they didn't spit on me, they didn't do a lot of things that they, that...
Because there was no need to.
Because they're professional, and there was a relationship. They obviously knew I was willing to take the ticket. I wasn't going to be. I've been through the dance with them before. So yeah, it's kind of a ballet now between us and the feds, particularly law enforcement over the gathering. Except for, of course, they had at the Jackson, Montana school. They had the Fort Jackson. They put a sign out front, Fort Jackson. Just like they were fighting the Battle of the Big Hole all over again against the Nez Perce.
I have one last quick question. How many people showed up for the gathering this year?
By Forest Service count, 22,700. By my count, 38,400.
Okay.
And there was 30,000 in the circle on the 4th of July. Through the whole valley, 30,000 people. And some people, I've been to many, many, many gatherings, and I've seen many, many circles. And I was in a place where I got to see the whole complete, fantastic, beautiful circle, and it was immense, and it was beautiful, and that's why the gatherings happen. It's, for, what is it? Expression of peace on the 4th of July. Freedom and peace. An original idea.
It's a whole lot of peace going on. 38,000 people.
Yeah, or even 25, whatever you like. So.
And I forgot to mention at the beginning, we are going to go for 2 hours today. And the second half, we will have live call-ins. So if you want to get your pencils ready, I'll say it a few times over the period. 542-6228, 542-MCAT, live call-ins probably around 10 after 9. Because we're going to show about a 20-minute segment of footage starting at about 10 to 9 that Brielle brought with her. And who's going backwards, who brought the tape? Who's the tape? Who's the tape from?
The tape is actually a compilation of various independent, probably maybe 5 to 6 different videographers around Missoula, compiled together by Turtle Magic Productions here in Missoula.
Okay, and we can maybe say more about it after it's been shown, because I'm sure it'll bring up lots of questions for people. And so you were involved with this last weekend's interaction with the police, and what happened? What was your experience?
I was only involved with the early Saturday evening police incident. I wasn't involved in either of the late night on Friday night or Saturday night, but basically my situation and what occurred was I met a group of local residents at the Missoula police station to do a peaceful protest of our disagreement with some of the tactics that had been involved with the Hells Angels visit. We had been informed of some arrests that took place on Friday night that were, from our knowledge, without cause. We had been informed of different incidents that were similar to that as well. I live here in town. I was falling asleep every night with helicopters flying over my house and driving down the street and coming across 10 cop cars at once, and I felt very I disagreed very much with just the police presence, the atmosphere of intimidation it was creating within Missoula for people that live here and from people that were here from out of town. Just the general impression it was giving to everyone. So that's why I was taking part in the assembly at the police station. We decided to march down Higgins. We had a few people that had made signs. We had a couple of people drumming. It was very peaceful, very well-intentioned. When we made it down to Higgins Street, we were barricaded by police and asked to return to the sidewalks, which we did. The protest actually entered back into the street about a block further down, and more police arrived. We were again asked to return to the street. We had possibly 10 people on bicycles that were riding next to the people that were walking. They were in the right-hand side of the right lane of traffic where they are legally supposed to be riding their bikes. And those were actually the first arrests that I saw occur. 2 people that I know that live here in Missoula were stopped on their bicycles and physically pulled off their bicycles, thrown on the ground, thrown on the cop cars, arrested, basically without cause. They weren't antagonizing the police. They were simply riding their bicycles down the street.
And they hadn't been asked to move, or?
Not to my knowledge, they had not been asked to get off the street, but you can't really ask a bicyclist to not ride their bike in the street as far as I know. That's completely legal, to my knowledge. But basically when that occurred, a few people voiced their disapproval. We felt that was a complete violation of their rights. They were doing nothing but riding their bikes down the streets. We were asked to return to the sidewalks or face arrest ourselves. I personally, when I was turning my back to the police to walk back to the side of the sidewalk, I was grabbed from behind and lifted off the ground, pulled across the intersection, slammed down on a cop car, and arrested, handcuffed very severely. I had bruises for days. I was not giving a prior warning. I was not making a disturbance. I had my back to the police officer when I was leaving the street. I was put in a van and hauled down to the detention center with a group of about 10 people. We were the first to arrive. They lined us up against the wall. There was a lot of confusion involved with who had arrested who. They basically left us there until they could figure out exactly what had happened and who had been arrested and why. My arresting officer actually singled me out to give me a ticket, and despite my inquiries, would not inform me as to what I was being arrested for or what the consequences were going to be. I did refuse to give my name until my questions were properly answered. Because of that, I was hauled by 3 officers into maximum security confinement and locked down until further notice. I had not been read my rights. I had not been informed of what I had done. I basically decided very quickly, once I got locked into the cell, to cooperate. I gave my full name, said I would accept whatever charges were being placed against me as long as I could possibly be processed and set free. I did actually walk out of the police station that night, about 2 o'clock in the morning. I was finally released after I had been photographed, fingerprinted. I now have an arrest record. I have never been arrested before. I still, to this day, do not know exactly what I was being charged with. My charges have disappeared. When I went in for my court appearance, they could not find my ticket. They couldn't figure out who had arrested me. So basically, I was held, locked in a cell, fingerprinted, photographed, all basically for no reason. I was never told.
Do you know who the arresting officer was?
I don't at this time. I am potentially working on identifying him, though, at this time.
So you weren't.
It was a local Missoula County officer. It was, yes.
And had you already started down Higgins? There's some question about the parade didn't have a license or, the okay to go down Higgins, and just doing that made you arrestable. Right, and I understand where that's coming from. I've actually spoke to several city council members who did mention the fact that you are required to be issued, to apply for a permit for large gatherings on downtown streets. At the time, I wasn't aware of this. I didn't really have anything to do with the planning of it.
Also, though, too, the place where you go to apply for that permit is the police station. And in my opinion, that would not be an easily accessible permit to get if you're protesting the people that are giving it to you. But basically, this is Missoula. People voice their opinions on issues that concern them peacefully. I mean, this has occurred before, and this has not been the end result. This is potentially not like other cities in the United States. You know, a lot of the officers that were brought here possibly didn't have anything to compare it to. I mean, we were being completely peaceful. We're citizens of Missoula. We have a right to vocalize our disapproval at what's going on with our police force. And I think a lot of people saw that as the only way to make an effective statement. And
I think citizens do everywhere in the country. It's just we exercise it more, probably a little bit.
yeah, I mean, in Missoula, I would say we have a very active base of people who keep close tabs on what is happening in their city, which is a very good thing, and tend to vocalize it when it's not going the way that they would like it to.
So I want to get one more thing clear. You didn't disregard any policeman's statements or requests or demands or anything like that?
I would say they asked me for my name when they were trying to ticket me, and you mean
but
when I was
street,
arrested?
When you were arrested?
I was asked to leave the street,
Okay.
and as I was leaving the street is when I was arrested.
As you were leaving, you were arrested?
Right.
So, okay.
So basically, technically, I had been asked to leave the street.
But you were doing that?
Right.
When you were arrested?
And I was grabbed from behind.
And this is around 8 o'clock at night?
8:30 or so?
8:30, okay. And again, we're going to have footage from Brielle coming up at about 10 to 9, and it'll be about 22 minutes long. And after that, we'll have live call-ins so people can ask any of the people on the panel any question they'd like. And we also have Chad Harder here, and as I understand, you were wearing a press pass on your chest, and you were a photojournalist covering the events for the Missoula Independent.
I was on the scene Friday night, Saturday afternoon, and early Sunday morning.
Okay.
And I had spoken with more than 50 officers over the course of the evening, trying to build a rapport, although it was quite difficult. There were officers brought into the state from Idaho, Utah, and across the state of Montana. The force downtown was difficult to approach, to say the least. I think that contributes to part of the attitude of people downtown was rapport between the Hells Angels and concerned citizens in Missoula was perfectly fine. People had conversations and they wondered, what is all the hubbub about? Why are we supposed to be so scared of these visiting bikers, when it's in fact the police officers that were instigating quite frequently conflict. So myself and other media members were on the street and covering all angles. And later on in the evening, there are at least 3 of us that were targeted as members of the media. There's very compelling footage, which you'll see shortly, of a KPAX videographer who is assaulted by an officer, and he's simply exercising his First Amendment rights. And that's really my main concern here, is the First Amendment rights, the freedom of the press, the freedom to assemble, and the freedom of speech. These are the 3 integral issues that are relevant to this case, in my opinion. And if the freedom of the press is at stake here, we need to ask the police force, what is it that you're trying to hide? Why is it that you are snatching a camera from a videographer? Why is it that when I am photographing an arrest taking place on the streets of Missoula, that I receive pepper spray in the face? I was not there as agitator. I was not there as a protester, and I think that's a misconception that many people have. I believe that the majority of the people that were on the street that night were simply concerned citizens, and although our police chief, Pete Lawrenson, has said in retrospect that he and his family would not be downtown that night, I believe that it is a responsible and concerned citizen that would be present on the street that night. You do want to see what this is like to have a couple hundred Hells Angels in town. You do want to see what your tax dollars are going towards with 170 officers downtown. These are very important things. When I was there at 3 o'clock in the morning, before the riot-geared police officers came back to the street, I looked around, and indeed, there were out-of-control drunk people that were dancing on awnings, and there were people dancing in the streets, and there were people throwing barricades around. Of course, there was no property damage when it was all tallied at the end. And I don't believe the police force was justified that night. However, the majority of the people that were downtown that night were simply blown away by watching their police force be completely negligent to the Hells Angels, allowing them to drink alcohol on the street, allowing them to run red lights, allow them to ride the wrong way down Front Street, all the while using their billy clubs to keep citizens of Missoula from standing in the street. Later on that evening, it was really unbelievable and as disheartening an act as I have ever seen. To see that happen in the community of Missoula, you can see it on TV, happening at the WTO rallies. You can see it happening in Philadelphia. But right here in our own community, where people really aren't getting out of hand. Certainly, the people that broke the law should be held accountable. If you are trespassing, you should be held accountable. If you are breaking a window, you should be held accountable. But I believe that goes further. I believe that each police officer that assaulted citizens who are not breaking the law should be also held accountable. And I think that goes up the ranks also. I've spoken with a handful of attorneys since this happened, and all of them have told me that the logic behind the police statement through the loudspeaker to telling the people that were downtown to disperse is unconstitutional. There is no such thing as an unlawful assembly. These are our First Amendment rights. We are protected as Americans to be able to assemble freely. When the police come to town from out of state with no accountability, these Utah police officers are gone. They are not in the coffee shops that we are drinking coffee at in the morning. They are not in the parks. They can hose indiscriminately people with pepper spray and return to their community and go golfing with no problem. It's very dangerous to bring out-of-state police officers and then send them on their way without accountability.
Now, is it true that some of them didn't even have name badges?
Absolutely. There were numerous officers that did not have name badges. Every Missoula and every Montana police officer I saw was wearing a badge and a name tag. The Utah police officers were all wearing badges that I noticed, but not all of them were wearing name tags. According to a police officer, I don't remember who it was, as a police officer deputized by Missoula County, they would all be required to follow the laws of police officers in Missoula County. One of those is to wear their name badge, their name tag and their badge at all times, and that simply was not the case.
And that's one of the main things that's come to my mind is if we are going to have basically hired guns from out of town, don't we want to have an added level of accountability to what they're doing? Because like you said, they're just riding out of town when it's all done, having pretty much, well, I shouldn't say run free, but there's that certain level of accountability that we won't even allow in the Missoula police officers.
Absolutely, Heidi. I think that I witnessed myself. I have a photocopy of a citation that one person received. His charges were later lessened, but on the part of the ticket that says arresting officer, it simply says Helena PD.
Huh.
I'm no attorney, but I believe that ticket's just going to be thrown out immediately.
Right.
But this person shouldn't be subject to these brutal tactics by the police officers and drug to the station in the first place if they're going to not be accountable in the first place.
Well, that also makes me wonder if the police officers themselves weren't questioning their orders, if they didn't even have the nerve to write their names down. Did they not want to be involved in a possible lawsuit? Were they looking ahead and saying whatever they're being told to do is not right? And
I can't speculate on that, but
it seems odd.
It does seem very odd and suspect.
And thanks, Chad, and we're going to get back to you with some more questions, and I wanted to get Rich Walks, who's with us here. Again, local citizen, arrestee, and when was it then you were arrested?
I was arrested at Saturday evening, about 8:30 p.m. As a matter of fact, I saw Brielle get arrested. It was very upsetting to watch her being manhandled by the police. Prior to that, I saw police being very aggressive and threatening in their tactics, forcibly shoving citizens, ordering citizens very forcefully on the sidewalk. Everything I saw indicated that people were making attempts to comply with them. there was a crowd down there. People were spilling off the sidewalk. There were also, as Brielle mentioned, bicyclists who didn't know what to do. They didn't know if they should get on the sidewalk.
And now, were they involved with the protest? Or are they just biking through?
I don't know. I believe some of them were involved with the protest. Some of them may just have been biking through. But as far as what happened down there, I guess I'd like to speak of my feelings, really. I feel a real deep sense of shame. I mean, what I saw was aggression and intimidation, as I say, on the part of the police officers. And I'm not attempting to generalize or speak for all of them, but the ones I saw in that particular situation were, I guess the phrase I came up with to describe it was, well, people were protesting aggressive police tactics and high level of police presence. They responded to that with aggressive police tactics and high level of police presence, like throwing gasoline on a fire at that point. It was my strong impression that at least some of the police wanted conflict to occur and facilitated that conflict through their aggressiveness, through their hostility, and that people were down there to make a statement. There were some signs. There was one sign in particular. This was, I think, one of the most telling things I saw down there. A girl holding a sign that read hospitality, not hostility. That was snatched from her hands by a police officer, and he was swinging it wildly around, smashed it to pieces on the ground. I believe that is shown on the video that we're going to be watching. I mean, that kind of spoke louder than any words can to see that. I've worked in the hospitality industry here as a guide, showing people Western Montana, the beauty that's here. And I can't count the number of people that I've been very proud to show Missoula. And people have a wonderful impression of our town. They say, you know, people are so friendly. It's a pleasure to be here. People are very welcoming. And as I say, that pride really has been replaced by a sense of shame that this police presence was allowed in, and something like this was allowed to take place. Once again, I'm extremely law-abiding. I respect laws. I was making every effort to comply with everything that officers told me to do. In spite of that, I was grabbed and arrested shortly after Brielle. I just, I'm struggling with where to go from here with my feelings. As I say, I really feel ashamed at what I saw take place. I think it really did a disservice to the citizens of our community, you know, who were, as Chad said, you know, exercising First Amendment rights, assembling peaceably, and we saw how the police responded to that. And I do strongly feel that there needs to be accountability for what happened.
Thanks, all of you, for sharing your experiences in the past week and few months. And I wanted to bring up some points, and a lot of what I'll say has come from the newspaper. So as much as the newspaper has been authentic is how much this will be authentic. I believe that what spurred some of the commotion, I believe it was Saturday night, Sunday morning, was a woman fell off of a truck and was injured, and the emergency services were called. She laid, you know, she was unconscious, and she refused service when they finally got through and all of that. And I understand people were pretty good about letting the ambulance through and the emergency people to get there. You probably know more about that, Chad, since you were there. She later was maced or pepper sprayed and arrested. So there's just this ironic thing going on, you know. We have a lot of people all gung-ho to protect us, but from what? It was very disturbing for me to hear that the real hazard, the real risk was the enemy within. And this connects with what Chad was saying. A concerned citizen would be down there seeing what's going on in the community and connecting with other people. It's a real community place, Missoula. I mean, the community is just so wonderful, and that's why people stay here, you know, making pennies every day. They stay here because of the community. And as soon as you start making community and really feeling it and being it, there is no enemy within. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, again, that sounds like grasping for straws, grasping for rationale for what happened, the enemy within. Does anyone want to comment on that? That was just such a shocker to me when I heard it in the paper. Go ahead.
Well, my comment is, number one, the federal hand, which, you know, you got to understand, since 1972, the gatherings, which amount to 25,000, 30,000 people a year in peace, are considered unlawful assemblies in the United States, and they have been for the last, since 1972. There's only been a few years that they've ever been considered legal. So they're an outlaw event. Okay, so that's the justification behind the federal hand. The Sonny Barger of the Hells Angels was mentioning how, I think it was him or Lawrence and one of them, how the federal government and the federal agents had been involved in getting together the helicopters, the Utah police, and all this. And you realize that the federal people run the Olympics. It isn't just the Utah State Police, it's the federal government that has a lot to do with this. And so somewhere behind the Missoula police officers and the Utah police officers and the ones from Idaho and Helena and all this, somewhere there is a federal tactics person who's told them to do what they do. Okay, that's number one. Second thing is, a friend of mine suggested something like most places, most cities, when they get this kind of situation happens between the citizens and the cops, they set up a police review board. And Missoula doesn't have a police commission. They don't have a citizens review board of the police, and we need something like that in Missoula now, obviously.
I was going to say, not yet.
And the third part of it is the police. I've just seen the videos, but the police were really, really, really geared up to battle with the Hells Angels, which they were told to leave alone. So they needed somebody to let their juice out on, and they let it out on the people who came down the street. About 1980 or late 80s or early 90s, somewhere in there. I think it was against the Persian Gulf War. It might have been against a demonstration, something else. We started out with a parade out of going across the Higgins Street Bridge, and we went down the hill towards the end of Higgins there. And as we were coming across the bridge, the police officers came up and they threw a car across the road. Okay, Missoula County police officers. They got Missoula City, and they got out to examine whether or not we had a parade permit or not. Okay, now we actually had a parade permit, but it hadn't been processed. Okay, so technically we were illegal, but they didn't get out and hit us or pepper spray us or anything else because this is Missoula. You're just more polite. You're supposed to be a Missoula City police officer. We were dealing with people we knew. So this time around, the cops went crazy. I believe it was because they were given instructions by the federal hand for training for the Olympics to use these tactics, which is order them disperse. If they don't disperse, immediately begin arrest. You see, and that occurs right now in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. That occurs probably at the Olympics. But in Missoula on a Friday, Saturday, and a Sunday, I don't know. That's why I think Citizen Review Board is a good idea.
What would you like to see as a resolution or a step towards resolution of all of this?
Well, first of all, I really strongly feel that we need to move beyond this divisive rhetoric, and terms like the enemy within, I think, are very indicative of that rhetoric. I mean, we are a community.
You know where that comes from, right? It was in the newspaper?
Yes, I did read that article, and I was deeply concerned by that characterization by the chief. I think it's disingenuous on both an intellectual and an emotional level. We're not each other's enemies. And what we are is concerned. We're concerned citizens, and we're concerned about what some of us perceive to be perhaps an erosion of our rights. And that's maybe something that's been taking place, as Barry's pointing out, and it's going to continue to take place. Hopefully not, but we do need to be vigilant about that. But specifically as far as the future here now, Missoula, I think that divisiveness is not going to get us anywhere. We really need to look at this as a community, and I see it in the newspaper too. I'm sorry to refer back to it, but just the letters that are in there, I'm very disturbed by people that I don't feel, grasp what went on down there, I hope that shows like this and continuing media coverage will bear us out on this, that what happened was not right, and there needs to be accountability for it. I think there's been some movements towards external reviews of the police conduct of the events that led to this, and I think that's entirely appropriate. I'm not, I guess, going to go into whether or not I think an apology is in order, but I really feel that some people's rights were violated, and there needs to be accountability for that, and hopefully we'll see that.
Rich, I agree with you. I talk with people in Missoula, and I talk with officers and attorneys, and I feel as though we may be headed in the right direction. I've got absolute faith in this great place that we choose to live, and I see how this could be a learning opportunity for people on all sides of the issue. However, when I see the larger picture, when I see what's going on with these police paramilitary units, the use of these military tactics by police forces across the country has increased exponentially over the last decade. And whereas I believe that the city of Missoula has great intentions and great members, all the way from the police chief down to somebody who wasn't even present that night, I think that we, for the most part, have great hearts and great intentions and great visions for the future of this community. But I'm extremely concerned about, one, the erosion of our rights, and two, the normalization of these police paramilitary units. It is not okay for people to be pepper sprayed. It is not okay for our chief of police to come out with a blanket statement saying that what happened that night was okay. It is not okay. The community of Missoula cannot handle that kind of thing. It feels good to live here, and that is a very dangerous occurrence, what happened that night. We need to analyze that entire night. We cannot allow leaders of the police, Pete Lawrence in particular, to make statements that are hard party line statements. He needs to say, whoa, what happened that night was heinous. Maybe it was the only alternative we had, but I'm going to look into it. I'm going to see what happened that night, and I'm going to make my decisions based on the review. I consider it disheartening and dangerous for a straight party line statement to be made, and I'm very concerned about our community. I don't know what the future holds. I do have great faith in the local spirit, but I'm very concerned about what's happening on a national level.
I did want to make a statement about the pepper spray. This was in the Independent. Documented, over 130 people in the country have died from pepper spray, not just at close range. And that's the documented stuff. There have been a lot of other speculative people dying a few hours later in their cells that have been pepper sprayed. So it's not a non-lethal weapon.
Pepper spray is arguably carcinogenic and mutagenic. People have died after they've been sprayed by pepper spray, and pepper spray is considered I forget the word, an inappropriate weapon of war. However, we're allowed to use it on our own community members.
Yeah, they're not allowed to use it in war.
Many countries have outlawed its use completely. And still our police officers are allowed to use it on our populace, and I consider that very, very scary, very dangerous. If you look at it historically, the rise of police forces have led to many dictatorships in South and Central America. The rise of the SS led to Hitler's state of power. I mean, I'm not paranoid at this point. I'm not thinking that we're necessarily heading that direction, but these are very important things that we need to look at from a historical perspective to see where we're headed and where we are right now. If you spent the night in your house in the South Hills or at Miller Creek, and you came downtown Sunday morning, everything is cleaned up, and then you read about it in the paper on Monday when it comes out. Is that in our town? Is that in our community? It's almost impossible to believe. When police officers are yelling at you and spraying you with pepper spray, and you are witnessing indiscriminate arrests of people being thrown to the ground for simply asking, why is my friend being arrested? Mm-hmm. These are things that we need to look at very, very carefully, both as civilians and as police review boards, I think.
And you brought up a good point. I'll get to you in just a second, Brielle. I know you have something to say. That's one of my other main criteria is what level of protection is protection. You know, I'm sure some people are saying, well, nobody got broke any bones or nobody got killed. Maybe that would be their limit of over-the-edge violence. But this is very violent to me. This is exceedingly violent. Nobody in their right mind would want this to happen to them. Nobody's sitting safe and comfortably anywhere. You know, I don't want to divide, you know, the South Hills and all that, but nobody in their right mind would want this to happen to them. And there were people, like you said, concerned citizens just seeing what's going on in their town, and other people just riding by from events elsewhere that got pulled off their bikes and arrested, and just, you know, being there. That is, you know, again, constitutionally protected. And I wanted to put one more thing in, and then I'll let Brielle have it. Just a little weird, quirky thing. As far as I remember, the Boston Tea Party was a civil disobedience. It's the founding of our country, you know, being able to voice our opinions and have a say in our government, how we're governed, who governs us, and what means they use. They are working for us. That is so key. They are working for us. And now, Brielle, you have about 5 minutes before we do your tape.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly address what was brought up earlier about Chief Lawrenson's comment on the enemy within the community. I think that's almost ironic. It shows very clearly his lack of understanding for the Missoula community at this point. I think he really underestimates the lack of involvement between people in this community. That pretty much says it clearly, that he, I don't know if he's possibly trying to place blame elsewhere, but creating an enemy within, I mean, just that line right there, putting that out into the public, that's very divisive. That in itself creates an area for people to view other people within their community as the enemy, as someone that is not a part of them, as someone that doesn't agree with their way of life. And what I witnessed, these are people, these are just regular Missoula citizens. I mean, I just want people to realize that this is them, this affects them, this is part of their life. I mean, they could have been one of those people walking home at night, regardless of whether or not they think they would have been downtown at 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, they could have been there at 8:30 in the evening. We had people that were arrested that were simply walking home in the wrong place at the wrong time. I mean, this does affect the whole community. It makes me very sad that he is trying to paint a picture of blame. I think it really needs to go beyond that. I think people need to accept this as a whole community and work towards possibly preventing it from happening again. I think the blame is very counteractive and unnecessary. And another thing that I was going to comment on was the pepper spray. This footage that are we about to show? The footage? Yeah. It shows some very striking examples of whether or not the pepper spray is legal for the police to be using, just the irresponsibility with which they were using it in. I mean, there's footage included on the videotape of police officers spraying, coming up from the ground and spraying in a circle in front of them, unable to even see who is standing there. And to my knowledge, pepper spray should only be used as a last resort sort of defense. You know, if a group of people are coming at a police officer, he has no other defense to use the pepper spray, but we see police officers basically using it without judgment, using it in all circumstances, whether someone was a potential threat to them or not, basically blindly spraying pepper spray, and that's a harmful, it's very scary that the lack of judgment involved with the use of the pepper spray this weekend.
And I think after the footage, if anybody knows exactly what pepper spray does, I know it's made out of cayenne, but if any of you could tell me what it does to the body, we'll cover that after the footage. Does anyone want to make a quick comment before we start to see the footage?
I'd like to make 2 comments.
Sure.
One, the police in Philadelphia used almost exactly the same words as Lawrenson. This is, quote, professional agitators, unquote, that are putting on these demonstrations. He said almost exactly the same, that there's you know, these were planned events. So Philadelphia and Missoula, two different scales of demonstrations and almost exactly the same rhetoric. The party line, as Chad said. Okay, and the other thing is that, you know, the pepper spray incident that happened in Northern California, where the sheriff's deputy pepper sprayed people, put pepper spray directly into their eyes and like that, right, behind a protest down there. The Headwaters protest a few years ago. It's going to court again, and the police are in the wrong. And so I think that maybe Montana police, Missoula police, ought to take a good look at this video that we're about to see about the indiscriminate use of pepper spray. Because I've been to a lot of demonstrations. I've never seen it used the way that they used it here. I've never seen that ever in any police department ever in the country. I've never seen them just go shh and spray across a whole bunch of people. They just don't do it that way. It's very directed events, very, very directed scenarios, and they have to be very, very cautious about use of it. And it's you know, so how did they get away with that? Just a thought.
Okay, and I think we're ready for the footage. And again, it's 22 minutes long, and we'll be back at the end of the footage, and we'll have live call-ins at that point. 542-6228 is where you can call in. It's 542-MCAT. And I hope a lot of people will be eager to call. And if anyone's at all paranoid about us seeing your phone number, we do have caller ID. You can dial *67 before you dial the number, and then we can't see who it is. So *67 542-MCAT. Here's the footage.
There's something happening here, but what it is ain't exactly clear.
Try to get some cars down. Let's go. Get the fuck out of here. pushing them down this way, and they're getting trying to get them going that way. You want them to all move out, right? They're pushing. Okay, you all need to start moving this way, okay? Everybody's going that way. Come on, guys, come on, people, trying to move down. You need to start moving that way. Get the fire hoses! My opinion, 161 fucking bucks for a goddamn pig. You guys waste my fucking money. You really don't want to do that, okay? You don't want to incite a wrong. That's against the law, okay? Okay. You need some more light? Let's start moving this way. I can like the free country like you said. Let's go. Hey, that becomes a crime, all right? Video camera! Arrest the girl with the video camera! Arrest the girl with the video camera!
Why? You're arresting local citizens. You are.
And we want to know why. I think all of us want to know just why. It's simple. Why?
What are you so afraid of?
It's not the Hells Angels.
Police. And the 530 News gave the indication and summed up that the problem was that the police had last night was what patrons harassing the bikers. That's how they summed it up. And that is not what was going on last night.
This is hype. This is garbage, and you know it.
I'm sorry, I understood from you, you said that they came to you and spoke with you last night.
Last night, about the citizens bothering them. That's what they came and asked us about. Take care of these people that are bothering us.
The citizens.
Oh, that's what I'm quoting. I'm just telling you what they said. There isn't any problem.
Why were there arrests last night?
There were arrests for people who broke the law.
We asked you to get off the roadway, and you did. That's what we did. And then you started your force.
You are our servants. We're not your servants.
No, that's not true, man. I'll tell you what. I'm my own man.
not supposed to follow traffic signals anymore. Is that what you're telling us?
You go over there right now. You can go around the block. We're talking about
everyone followed out of the car calmly, stand around like every Friday night.
We're here to protect you. That's because they're the problem.
Oh, let's see. These guys are allowed to cross the street.
She wants you to come in. Keep talking, okay?
too. And we'll carry you on that.
Missoula, Montana.
My goddamn car! You fucking mace me, you piece of shit! Hey, what? No, hey! I didn't. I'm trying to go to my car! Hand behind your back! Behind your back! Hand behind your back! Let go of my glasses, you're gonna break. Could you take those, please? God damn it!
Whenever a known threat level of any magnitude exists, I will, as the Chief of Police, always do what is necessary to safeguard the people of this community as well as the officers that serve under my command. It's essential for us to have the ability to protect the community as well as law enforcement officers responding to any incidents. In my opinion, and the opinion of all the law enforcement officers that were present in Missoula County and responding to the Hells Angel incident, we accomplished our mission with total and complete success. As we responded to the Hells Angels' presence on Front Street Friday night, the crowd was very, very peaceful as they watched the Hells Angels coming up to the 2 o'clock hour and then their departure. After the departure of the Hells Angels Friday night or early Saturday morning from the Front Street area, we saw people gather, we saw law enforcement interact, and there were some arrests made at that time. Again, continuing to change our operational tactics depending upon what we saw. As we moved into Saturday night, there was an organized demonstration in front of City Hall about 8 o'clock. During my observation of that event, it was very peaceful. It was in accordance with not only the constitutional prerogatives of each individual, but well within the confines of the law. However, that group of people then moved into the streets of Missoula and became not only disorderly, but they were doing an unlawful activity, and the Missoula police moved in and responded. And again, a number of arrests were made. Later on Saturday night or early Sunday morning, as we continued to modify our tactics, we saw a very large group of people observing the activities of the Hells Angel on Front Street. We, the police, took every precaution that we could imagine to safeguard the community by barricading aspects of the street, trying to diminish the pedestrian traffic outside the scope of a crosswalk, accommodating the Hells Angels. Without a doubt, we had a very high law enforcement presence. As the Hells Angels departed between 2 and 2:30, it was our decision to let the crowd disperse on their own. We felt that they would do that. We backed off, pulled all of our troops out of the Front Street area, but again, we continued to monitor what was going on. Within just moments, it was apparent to us that the crowd did not stay on the sidewalk, and they moved into the street. And again, that is a lawful activity. They were being disorderly, they were impeding pedestrian traffic, they were impeding motor vehicle traffic. And then within a few minutes, we began to see signs of other criminal activity. Particularly, we saw trespass. People were climbing upon awnings of businesses in that area. And then we got a report of a woman down in the street needing assistance. We did not know the severity of injuries or if there were any injuries. We performed a measured tactical police response into the Front Street area with trained police officers. Almost all the officers that responded to that incident on Front Street were in fact Missoula police officers. We directed the people that they were conducting illegal activities. They needed to disperse and or get back on the sidewalk. Those that failed to comply were arrested. I don't recall the total number of arrests that took place at that time. We were in and out of that operation within about 30 minutes. In spite of the fact of some involvement and activities on the part of a very small section or group of people in and around the community, again, we were very successful in our mission and the task that we were set forth to do.
Something happening here, but what it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware. I think it's time we stop, children, watch that sound. Everybody look what's going down. There's battle lines being drawn. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong. Young people speaking their minds are getting so much resistance from behind. Every time we stop, hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
Well, thanks for staying with us and watching all that footage. I did want to let people know that this show, the first hour and a half, will replay Thursday, this Thursday, August 10th at 2:30 p.m. We don't have 2 hours to show the whole thing, but it'll go the first hour and a half, which we're still in. Tonight's going till 10 o'clock, a 2-hour show. And I'm sure you could arrange something with MCAT if you want to see the whole thing in the entirety. I think something might be wrong with my mic here. We will be taking phone calls. The number here is 542-6228, 542-MCAT. I know a lot of comments came up while we were watching the footage just from the panel, so I'll let people address what they heard and saw. Did anyone want to start?
I didn't have any specific issues that I wanted to address, but just in general. It kind of speaks for itself, actually. I might just have to leave it at that. It really shows the abuse of power. It really shows the police officers acting out of their realm, attacking innocent bystanders.
Okay, one of the points I wanted to make, I did see some police officers working well with the crowd. There were definitely some police officers that were just doing a fine job. My main concern is, why were they all there? Yeah, we had the Hells Angels in town, and right now, where is it, Barry? Tell me about
Sturgis.
Sturgis. There's about
50,000 bikers coming through here on their way to Sturgis, which is going to be 300,000 bikers here, like next week. There's no helicopters flying over. You can go out and hear them on 90 now, going by. They're roaring by.
Oh, they stop by in town, get gas, and
hundreds of bikers, thousands are passing through right now. They do every single year. It's never an emergency. There's never helicopters, and there's never hundreds of cops.
And I have read in the paper, they say that they had inside information that the Hells Angels were up to something, and we're never supposed to be privy to what that is. So, yeah, some officers did work well with the crowd. Others, just to point out, in case people didn't know, that spray going through the air like this, arcing, was pepper spray going just across to all the people standing on the sidewalk. Sure.
I wanted to just say one more comment about that as well. Some police officers were most definitely acting properly. I don't want to generalize and say that all police officers were misbehaving or abusing their power. and also to point out that those police officers are as well integral parts of this community. And I want to be careful not to put across the image that we're trying to say the cops were bad, the people were good, or the people, like they're saying the people were bad, or the cops were good. It's just not like that. It's much more a community issue. They're part of the community as well. And I just wanted to clarify that.
And I think we have a couple calls. They are being screened. We do have a call. I just wanted to say one thing before we get into the calls. We obviously have people on the panel of pretty much a consensus opinion. And it's not that we don't want to hear from other sides of this story and other opinions, but I wanted it to make a really safe atmosphere for everybody to get their comments out. And now you do have the chance to call in and let us know what you think in either direction, how you want to see your community run. Do we have a say in it? And I'm going to get a call right now. Hi, caller, are you there?
Yes, I am.
And did you have a question for somebody?
Yeah, I'd like to know why you people are against police officers.
Okay, I personally am not against the police officers, and I'll let anybody who wants to answer that.
If the people weren't down there being disorderly, the policemen wouldn't have to show the force that they showed.
I would be happy to comment on that. I was down there the entire evening. I arrived at the courthouse at 8 o'clock and stayed until I was pepper sprayed at 3:20.
Why were you interrupting the police officers?
Ma'am, my role is that of a member of the media, and as I was photographing what was happening that night, I positioned myself well out of the way of the officers. I placed myself away from the line that I believed they were going to push people back. I was down in a kneeling position and I was photographing. In fact, I'd be happy to show you the photograph that I took, my last frame, as I was pepper sprayed.
But I've seen a lot of other people down there showing disorderly conduct.
Yes, and earlier on in the evening, I witnessed many Hells Angels drinking alcohol in the street, double parking, standing in the street, driving the wrong way down Front Street. Numerous laws were broken by members of the Hells Angels.
And do you know how much I see throughout the year people like you or anybody else showing disorderly conduct towards elders, children, and everything else?
I think that's a very good point. What I would like to speak of on this issue is the duty that each of us have that night. The police officers have duty to, first of all, uphold the law, as well as be responsible members of the community. Myself, as a member of the media, has a duty to report to you and everybody else who's not going to be up at 3 o'clock in the morning exactly what's going on that night, whether it be the citizens or the Hells Angels or the police force. I think that my pictures speak for themselves. I encourage you to pick up a copy of the Missoula Independent.
Do you think it was right that the person who hopped on the side of that car was being disorderly and causing trouble?
I would encourage the police force to enforce the law to all of the people who broke the law, regardless of who that is. Anybody in our community who is breaking the law should be held responsible to the law.
So do I.
And the people who were assembling legally downtown that night should not have received indiscriminate pepper spray. People who were standing on the sidewalks and observing the activities of the night should not have been hit with billy clubs. People should not have been arrested for simply asking why other people were being arrested. Ma'am, these are our First Amendment rights. These are integral to what it is to be an American.
Yeah, I know all about it.
Okay.
And I think, no, ma'am, I think that people should, these bike riders should be on the side of the road where we taxpayers pay thousands and thousands of dollars for you people to ride in the bike lane, but yet we have to almost cause accidents for you people.
Okay, Brielle wants to make a comment too.
I just had a quick question for you, ma'am. I was wondering, wouldn't you consider it the job of the police officers to therefore be able to tell the difference between people who were breaking the law and those that weren't? Because I definitely understand your concern, and we do respect the police officers and their duties to do.
They're protecting you. Not only me and not only everybody on that street. They're out there doing a job that is really crummy.
Okay, and I do not feel that I was protected. I feel that I was...
Why were you down there at that time of night? Why weren't you at home?
Well, it was 8:30 at night.
This was 8:30 in the evening that I was arrested. It was broad daylight. I was not there.
Why did you put yourself in that position that you were in that kind of a crowd?
Okay, that's your last question, then I have another caller, but we will answer that question.
Okay, that I was in that kind of crowd is what I would like to address, because specifically, I do have a legal right to, first of all, be within whichever crowd I choose to be. That does not automatically make me a lawbreaker. That does not automatically mean that I am arrestable because I am standing on the street with a certain group of individuals. Does not give them cause to violently arrest me in particular.
Thank you very much for your call.
I would like to say one more thing really quick here, and that is before anybody who was not downtown in Missoula that night makes any decisions whatsoever, I encourage you not to side with anybody on this issue. I encourage you to check out the videotape that you just saw. I encourage you to talk to people who were downtown. I encourage you to think about this. Read the letters to the editor. There's a lot of people that are siding on one side or the other, and it's a very gray issue. There's a lot of things at stake here. There's a lot of issues in the pot, and I think that before someone sides straight party line with anybody, allow yourself to see all sides of this issue. Allow yourself to think about it before you make a statement that aligns you with.
And I don't think anybody here is saying that we don't want a police force, you know.
No.
Okay, and I'm going to take this call here. Caller, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hi.
Hi, how are you guys?
Good, how are you?
Well, I'd like to comment on something that the last woman just said about how you people, if you people hadn't have been down there to cause the problems, nothing would have happened. But I would like to also add that those people were people who had every right to be down there. As far as I know, we are not under martial law in this country, and people are allowed to be out past midnight. Another thing I would also like to add is that the cops that are down there, part of their duty is to differentiate between the people who are causing problems and the people who are there exercising their rights and standing up for what they believe in, because there is a difference. Yes, there were some police that were doing a great job working with the people, but there were also some police that showed excessive force, just extreme excessive force. And I also just kind of believe that whether right or wrong that those people were out there, they had every right to be. I personally was down there working. I was a photographer on an assignment and had my press pass removed. I was told I had to leave. All I was doing was standing on the sidewalk doing my job. The police officer who took my press pass refused to give me his badge number or his name. I don't believe that that is legal either, and I know that there was a lot of that going on when people were asking questions. I also know that people got major charges for federal obstruction of a police officer for simply asking why. And I just don't understand how that really protects our Fourth Amendment rights, especially when police are supposed to be public servants to protect and serve. That was not the case on the last weekend of July down on Front Street. And I think one thing that we need to do as a community is to not only ask why this happened, but to go one step beyond that and to work within the system that we have to change the statutes that made it possible for that to take place. Not only do we need to say, okay, this was wrong and this was wrong, but we need to start focusing on ideas to fix what happened. I'm not necessarily saying that everybody protesting was right or that they were wrong. I'm not also saying that the police department was completely in the right either, because as we saw in that video, there was excessive force. But I think that we need to start looking for ways to come to a solution as a community that makes it clear to people what they have the right to do and not to do in a situation like that when there is much public unrest due to the actions of the police department. We do need to emphasize here, I think, that the people down there wouldn't have started protesting if it weren't for the initial actions of the police department.
I thank you very much for all those comments. I did want to add, to me it seems that the police jumped from their job, and not all of them obviously, but some jumped from their job of following orders, arresting, dispersing, to punishment. And that's supposed to be up to a judge and a jury, as far as I know, unless the Constitution's been changed in the last...
And also, the cameraman who was showed on the footage, who had his camera taken away from him, was put in a headlock and started to be beaten with batons by cops in riot gear. I don't see how anybody can look at that and not see that as a violation of our civil rights. I really don't see how somebody can watch that footage and say that the cops had every right to beat down that reporter. It's a clear violation of freedom of the press. And
I'm sorry, but I would have to say that anybody who looks at that and says that that was right is ignorant of our laws in this country. And I hope that that doesn't put anybody off. But another thing that has bothered me is Police Chief Lawrence's reaction to all this, saying that there's not a problem. Well, obviously there is a problem, because otherwise we wouldn't be discussing it on MCAT. It wouldn't be the subject of town meetings. Obviously we have a problem, and we need to come to a solution. Another thing that I haven't been liking is the dehumanizing of the people that have been protesting this, saying it's just a bunch of liberal radicals and we don't have anything to worry about. But last time I checked, liberal radicals had all the same rights as right-wing conservatives, and we all put him into office, and his position is voted in, and I think we all have an equal say, but that doesn't seem to be coming across to the police department very well.
Yeah, and I should say there was a pretty wide cross of people who got arrested.
Yeah, it's a very wide variety of people.
Journalists, students, professional people, professor.
Teachers, nurses, lawyers. Many people were arrested. Yeah. It wasn't just liberal radicals on the street, as they like to say. These people that they're calling liberal radicals and dehumanizing are citizens of this community who have just the same rights as everybody else. And I really think that creating that separation between people in the community is just harming us more.
Can I ask you something here?
Yeah.
Or put in a comment here. What do you think happened with the mayor?
I haven't, to be honest,
Mayor Cadis and
yet. If you could tell me about it, I'd like to hear it, actually, because I really haven't heard it.
Well, I don't know. I just think that Mayor Cadis and the city council people, every single one of them, there had to be some kind of situation where Chief Lawrence, who's, by the way, supposed to appear at a human rights rally here soon in Missoula, and talk about and I think that people should definitely express their vibes about that. But the mayor and the city council, now they had to give some kind of authorization for all this emergency thing that happened here, and for all these federal agencies, and for the the general pileup of police, for the Hells Angels, 75 police officers.
Turning Sentinel High School into like ground zero, like military warfare, was pretty out of hand. I do have to say that there are some members of the city council that were against this. I do have to stand up for my city council member, Jim McGrath, who was in support of a police investigation. Also, by the way, hopefully anybody who is involved in this will be at the city council meeting tomorrow night to speak about it. I don't know, it's a sad thing to see in Missoula, Montana. It's one thing is being from Missoula, growing up here. Nothing I ever expected to see in this town, ever.
Thank you for your call.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Do we have another call on line 1?
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. One thing I wanted to say before we get to the last hour and a half is our aim is to try to mend the wounds here. We're not trying to be more divisive. We're trying to figure out a way everybody can still be happy about living in Missoula. So I'm going to go to the next caller. Caller, are you there?
Yes,
thanks for waiting. Do you have a comment or question?
Yeah, more of a statement. I want to say that a lot of the force was excessive, but most of it was necessary to ensure the safety of the public with the Hells Angels. And my statement is that all the extra force that was brought in to ensure the safety of the citizens was pretty much necessary with the Hells Angels. I'd love to see a lot of that force brought back to clean up our city of the transients and all these rainbows that are here just destroying our town. I'd like to see that force put to work there.
Can I ask you how you think they're destroying the town?
The rainbows, for instance, is draining our food banks, shoplifting from our stores, and it's just costing us, the prices. People wonder why the prices in the store are so high. It's because these people are in our store stealing.
How would you profile this perfect Missoula you're speaking of?
I'm not talking about perfect Missoula. I'm talking about just cleaning up some of the sidewalks. So we can go to a grocery store without being, panhandled on, or you hit upon in our car, people knocking on our windows, and there's no law against it. Mary Kenneth still don't do anything about it. So it's up to us as a citizen to do something about it. And I'd like to see some of this force help us to show for most of these people that are bugging us on the sidewalk.
Do you know we have no laws about panhandling and loitering in Missoula? Do you want?
That's what I'm talking about.
So you want more laws?
I'd like some kind of restrictions law, because the police can't respond to somebody sitting in front of a store bugging a customer and knocking on people's windows because there's no law against it.
You know, there's about 400 to 500 people live here year-round in the streets of Missoula, and they use the food bank. Some of them even panhandle. They work signs. And then this summer, there's been a whole lot of folks who maybe passed through from the gatherings, the rainbow gatherings. But most of them folks has pulled up freight and left town. And the food bank, in case you didn't read it in the paper, the food bank wrote a letter and indicated that no, the rainbows hadn't been emptying out the food banks. In fact, I know for a fact that hundreds of pounds of food were given back to the Poverello Center that was left over from the gathering. And what's a rainbower now? You got somebody that's, you know, is a rainbow and somebody that isn't. So you, like the police, you can see the rainbow star on somebody's forehead, right? They got a mark. It says you're a rainbow.
I think what the mark is when I got to haul them up to, I'm a retail manager, when I got to haul them up 6 to 8 of them at a time to the office for a shoplifting in my store, yeah, that's what the mark is. The mark is when the customer won't go on them, they gotta let them go, because, the jails are full. You know, that's what the mark is, and I'm tired of it. And like I said, there's no laws against it. When the jails are full, they gotta let them go with the ticket.
There are laws against shoplifting, and
Exactly, but there's nowhere to put them when the jails are full because the gathering was here. You know, it's just a little frustrating. I'd love to see these 500 cops in the town when the rainbows are pulling through town, robbing our stores blind.
Wouldn't you say, sir, that you could then classify those people as shoplifters? I don't understand how you're making the jump into rainbowers when...
I don't mean to
excuse
say
me,
that all
I wasn't done.
I don't mean to say they're all the same, and I'm sorry when I generalize that. I say about 70% of our problem were the people that were going to the gathering. So I don't mean to say that they're all the same, but it's not just the gathering, it's transients also, and it seemed like I had more problems with people that were going to the gathering than I did normal transients.
Yeah, I just think that it's slightly unfair to, thank you for taking that back, but I think it's slightly unfair to generalize them as rainbow people when the rainbow gathering actually accepts anyone from any walk of life. I don't think you can really make a call that the rainbow people are in fact guilty for your shoplifting that's occurring in Missoula. I think that should be taken on a case-by-case basis.
It was taken on a case-by-case basis, but 80 to 85% of my shoplifters were people going to and from the gathering. That's how I was classifying it.
I can understand your frustration being a store manager, but do you really want some sort of martial law to take care of that sort of thing?
I'm not saying martial law, but I'm
well,
saying there's some kind of a law to...
500 police officers on the street for some shoplifters?
We need some kind of law to prohibit people from chasing away our customers. I mean,
okay.
The officers won't even respond because, like you said, it's not against the law.
Well, there are no loitering or panhandling laws, that's true.
Quite honestly, if you want to look to causes for retail difficulties in the downtown district, I think you should look out to all the cars in all the parking lots of the big box stores on reserve streets. People are moving out there to do their shopping, and that's why I see the downtown retail district struggling. In fact, I see it probably drying up here in years to come.
Exactly.
I think that's very unfortunate. I think Missoula's unique in that it has a vibrant downtown retail district, but I think you're in large part misidentifying the cause of that. I think people are being drawn away, by Walmart and by these other big box stores that can undercut the prices of downtown retailers. There's no easy solution to that. I'm not saying there is, but I do think you need to look a little bit beyond what you're identifying as the cause of that problem.
Well, you hit the nail right on the head when you said Missoula is a unique place, and they do have unique laws. I don't know any other town where you can't put a banner on the front of your building without getting a ticket. There's a banner law, and there is unique laws here, and I think there need to be unique laws for these situations that we're discussing.
Thank you very much for your call. We've had somebody very patient waiting on the line. Thank you. Thanks. Bye. Okay. Are you still there, caller?
Yes, I am.
Thanks for waiting.
I would just like to make the comment that all those people that were downtown did have the right to be downtown, and whether they were drinking and being rowdy or just innocently watching what was going on, once the police gave the order to disperse over the bullhorn, everyone who didn't disperse was then breaking the law.
Right.
Which is why the police came in the first place. If they had done what they were told to do, none of this would have happened.
Well, Brielle was walking away when she was told to disperse, and that's when she got arrested.
Oh, really? Well, I would just like to say that along with about 80% of Missoula, I'm behind the Missoula Police Force and Chief Lawrence and 100%.
I'm glad you got those statistics for us. Is there any other question you have for the panel?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, thanks a lot. And I'm sorry, I should have asked you, caller, while you were on. I really don't know where that statistic comes from. I would be curious about the source of that statistic. Do we have another caller? Okay. Thanks for waiting. Are you there?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
My wife and I are watching your TV show and like to make a comment. We've just recently moved to Missoula, and we're young professionals, and it's just refreshing to see the community stand up for itself, whether you agree or disagree. These are really the fundamentals that our country was founded upon, and it is refreshing to see people, fight so hard for what they believe in. One comment about the video that we watched that really stuck out to me was the comment that your police chief used in reference to his officers as troops.
Yes.
It looked very much like a military action, and I'm sure that you all that were there felt that way. But just that statement was rather alarming to me. I've been to many events such as Sturgis, where there's a lot of individuals like the Hells Angels, and it can get very rowdy. But as your video shows, it was kind of maybe a little heated at that moment. But after they left, it didn't seem too bad to me. And I can, feel for where you guys are coming from on this.
Thanks a lot for your comments, and I just wanted to point it out, he's also your chief of police now. And don't be discouraged, it's a great place to live.
Yeah, we're excited, we really like it, and despite maybe some of the pains you guys are going through, it is a great place, and we're excited to be here.
So where did you come from? Did they have a citizens review board of the police?
We spent the last couple of years in Salt Lake City, and the small community that this kind of is, that you guys are so involved in your community, is something we haven't really experienced a whole lot. And it's, like I said, it's very refreshing. It's neat to see people so involved in their community.
Welcome to Missoula.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Thanks a lot for your call. And I did want to add one thing to that other caller. I guess we also could pretty much be considered 80% of the people that do support the police officers. We want to see them doing a job that they enjoy and using good judgment. It is a job. We're accountable on our jobs, and so I think we have a caller on 2. Okay, caller, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Thanks for calling.
You're welcome. Hello?
Hi, do you have a comment or a question for anybody?
Yes, I do. The comment is, I think the response by the police department was totally appropriate for the fact that the Hells Angels were having their summer run to our town. However, I think their response to the people standing on the street, watching the Hells Angels and enjoying an evening as adults who were not in violation of any kind of ordinance on the street, and being pepper sprayed, beat with their nightsticks, etc., was totally inappropriate. And I think this community needs to address the fact that the police department went totally overboard for the people that were not violating the law.
Thanks a lot. I like your balanced way of looking at it. It did make a lot of people feel comfortable with the Hells Angels here that we had so many police.
Well, I think the fact that the Hells Angels are coming to our town, a western Montana community, scares a lot of people, and I think the police response was totally appropriate. However, when you have locals who have an interest in, not just an interest, but a curiosity, if you will, of watching what they're doing and that kind of thing, and are standing on the street and having the police force pepper spray them and hit them with nightsticks and arrest a percentage of them is totally inappropriate. And I think as a community, we need to look at what our police department is really doing and make sure that we're not becoming a police state.
Amen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
I do have a comment on what the last caller said. I do appreciate his position. However, I find it interesting that in a state where Governor Roscoe gets on the radio and trips all over himself, inviting people to come and visit Montana, that we find ourselves being so judgmental about who we choose to welcome here and who we choose to treat in the fashion that the Hells Angels were treated. I'm certainly not implying that they're model citizens. However, you are innocent until you're proven guilty in this country, and I think a comment of one of the Hells Angels to that effect was very compelling. Said that you can't follow people around thinking they're going to commit a crime. You enforce the laws when they are violated.
You can in a police state. They've got cameras on every corner in Orange County or the city of Orange in California. They've put cameras everywhere. So that's how they are dealing with prevention, is constant surveillance. That is a choice. We have another caller here. Hi, are you there?
Yeah.
Thanks for calling.
Yeah, I was wondering what you guys thought about the two people that got pepper sprayed while they were trying to be handcuffed or be arrested.
Yeah, that's a good question. After they'd been handcuffed and arrested, why were they then pepper sprayed? Does anyone want to comment on that?
Which circumstance is this? Is this the two standing on the...
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Not that it had already been handcuffed, but...
Yeah, they were waiting to be handcuffed.
They were holding out their hands to be arrested. I think that's some of the most compelling footage on the videotape. That's very sad. And you can see, too, the line of the police officers. There's, up to 15 or so police officers coming towards two people standing just on the sidewalk and spraying them as they come up. I think it's it's a very good visual for a lot of other things that happened. The two people holding out their hands and pretty much saying, we are innocent, take us, and therefore being attacked anyway. It's very...
Well, if you, I've never really seen pepper spray. I've been to hundreds of demonstrations probably in the last 30 years, and I've been through civil obedience training, so I know how to get arrested if I get arrested. I don't resist, all this kind of stuff. Those people seem to me to be people who were stepping up and were sort of not resisting, and yet they were pepper sprayed anyway. And if you looked the way the pepper spray sprayed, it was like in a giant, like from 6 feet away. It took in a broad swath. It got their entire face, I imagine their body, people next to them, the officers next door to them. That comes from what I would call untrained, unprofessional police officer. And either somebody gave that officer the order and said spray, or that officer of their own initiative, from their training for this incident, for the Hells Angel emergency, the Hells Angel incident, they must have taken these officers off. They must have stood them in a line because they had a raggedy looking line, and they must have gone through some kind of a training dance, and it's pretty obvious that they weren't trained very well. And that's definitely should be dealt with by the Chief Lawrenson and the Missoula City Police and the county. Better training for your officers at the very minimum. If you're particularly used to something like pepper spray and violence against the crowd, you can tell when those cops seem to me they're just jacked up behind the Hells Angels. They needed some way to take out their frustrations, and that's very unprofessional.
All right, and do you know if anybody was seriously injured or hospitalized or anything?
There were a number of people that I know of that did seek medical attention. I second-handedly heard about an incident of someone that was so brutally arrested that they actually had to administer medical help before they could even finish booking him at the detention center. I know of a couple individuals in Missoula that are One of them being the video man that you see knocked down and his camera blacked out, and he's saying, "I'm going to my car, I'm going to my car." I know that he was severely injured. They knocked off his glasses. He has bruises. Personally, I had huge red welts around my wrist from the way I was so severely handcuffed, and bruises for days after from the handcuffs and from when I was taken into the cell as well. I don't know, does anyone else know of any other specific cases? But yes, there were quite a few people physically harmed.
All right, well, thank you. I just wanted to call in and comment.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, we have another caller. Caller, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Thanks for waiting. Do you have a comment for anybody or a question?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I've been a part of this community for probably the better part of 35 years.
Uh-huh.
And I've been a member of law enforcement, both in the federal area and within the state, for about 23 years.
Okay.
I think you'll find, if you look at the back history of Montana, and of Missoula in particular, when an officer has been wrong, the police commission does look into it, and charges are brought against that officer for his wrongdoing. He is put under the scrutiny probably even more so than a regular citizen. I was also downtown during a good part of this whole thing that took place, and I was concerned about the people gathering. What was interesting to me was I was up by the Iron Horse, and groups were saying, you know, we need to get going, we've got to be down there by such and such a time, we need to pack up, we need to get down there to where this big rally is going to be. Some of this wasn't just casual people being on the street, and you made the comment about the pepper spray. My concern on the pepper spray is it is not going to be point direct at any one person. If you're in the area, the overspray is probably going to get more than just one person. And I think most of the officers that at least I've known and dealt with and worked with receive very good training. And I think the Missoula Police Department should be commended for that.
Do you think that that was indiscriminate use of the pepper spray?
I think that at some point in time there may have been some overspray, probably a little too much coming out of some of the nozzles. But go ahead.
I'm really glad you called. I have a question. What about these Utah officers with no name badges who just waltzed out of town? What accountability do they have? You said that most police officers are under tighter scrutiny, and I agree with that. But in this case, I don't know how that's possible.
Well, I think that if the question comes up and someone needs to be recalled, that can be acquired. They've that information. They know who they are.
But we don't know who they are.
Well, if they do have a public forum and they have some type of charges brought against the police department, those names will be made public. They're proper public record. If they were here on some type of a mutual aid, they'll know who they are. They had sleeping arrangements here. They had probably per diem from their home unit.
Doesn't it concern you that the Missoula and the Montana police have to wear their name badges, and out-of-state police that we don't really have a rapport with come in anonymously? Have a really glorious week.
My name is Morgan, and I'm here with my friend Tommy the Leprechaun. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I was born about 50 years ago, back in 1950, in Akron, Ohio. That's where my father worked for the Quaker Oats Company. We had every cereal before it came out on the market. We had Captain Crunch, where the dog wouldn't even eat Captain Crunch anymore. Okay, so needless to say, we were brought up as real nutritional people, and so it's like. But my father got transferred from Akron, Ohio, when I was 10 to Illinois. I lived in Crystal Lake, Illinois. From Crystal Lake, I graduated from Cary Grove High School, which is in Cary, Illinois, which is like White Town way. But we lived right on the edge of where we had to go to the other school. And so I went 4 years, and I was always the clown. I was the high school, in high school I was a class clown all through grade school and high school. And I had better eyes than anybody in my whole class, and every time they put me in the back of the class. That's why I'm as loud as I am when I'm downtown. because I had to shout so the teacher could hear me. So I just have a natural loud voice now. I graduated in 1969 from high school. 3 days later, I went in the military. I went in the Navy. A friend of mine had gotten killed in Vietnam when I was a junior. When I was a senior, and he was a junior. Yeah, when I was a junior, he was a senior, and he graduated. And he went into the Green Beret. Well, I already told him I was going to go in the Navy anyhow, but he got killed. First jump, he got killed. So I was going to go in. I went in for revenge, and I put everything in my power into passing the SEAL training, which is really, really one of the hardest things to pass through the whole, any military career you go through is like the special forces. But I was a hospital corpsman demolition expert. I blew people up and put them back together. So anyhow, when I did go over, I was my side made me really reputable for being a tunnel rat. And I would go down the tunnels and try and flush the Viet Cong out. And I did about 3 different tunnels, and that's all I did. It was like, but when you're and I had the Viet Cong fear me because I left death and destruction behind me in the tunnels. But then I was in a foxhole and I got my thumb blown off. About 7 days later, I got evacuated to Japan, and Japan to Hawaii, and then came back to San Diego. When I was in the bed in San Diego, the chaplain comes in and said, I got some bad news. I said, what is it? He said, well, your mother, father, and sister and brother just got killed in a car accident. So I said, oh, okay, morphine. That's all I could think about at the point. And then, and I had gotten strung out pretty much on the morphine. I'd never shot anything like that up, even when I just take it eternally. And so it's like,